Hello everyone and welcome to Use Your Spanish. Bienvenidos a Use Your Spanish. In today's video, we are going to continue with our series of Español en Contexto. This is our 6th episode, and today's topic is to go to work or ir a trabajar. So if you are new here or this is the first time that you watch my videos or these kinds of videos, you must know that these videos are divided into 3 main parts. The first part is when you are going to listen to a native Spanish speaker called Miguel to tell us a story about his daily life. Miguel is going to tell us this story at a very low speed so that you can get the right pronunciation of the words and the right intonation. Then in the second part, I am going to explain to you some of the expressions, common sayings, and in general some vocabulary that I think may be useful or new for you. And then in the third part, you are going to listen again to Miguel to tell us the same story, but this time at a normal speed. So just like a native Spanish speaker would talk to you. This way you will be able to practice, and of course you will be able to test your ability to understand the Spanish now that you know the meaning of most of the words in the dialogue. So if you are ready, let's get started.
Al salir de casa, en las mañanas, tengo siempre 2 opciones para ir a mi trabajo. La primera es tomar mi coche y conducir durante 40 minutos más o menos, siempre que no haya mucho tráfico. Y la segunda opción es tomar el autobús desde la parada que está junto a mi casa, pero tardo alrededor de 1 hora en llegar a mi oficina. Las 2 opciones tienen sus pros y sus contras. La primera opción es la más rápida y al salir de trabajar puedo volver a casa inmediatamente, pero tiene la desventaja de que en muchas ocasiones tengo que estar un buen rato en medio del tráfico lento y además debo pagar para aparcar mi coche. La segunda opción, que es la que elijo generalmente, toma más tiempo porque debo esperar el autobús y porque la parada más cercana a mi trabajo queda a unos 300 metros, lo cual no es cómodo, especialmente cuando voy tarde. Pero la ventaja es que no debo preocuparme por buscar un aparcamiento o por conducir en medio de un atasco. Simplemente me relajo y disfruto del recorrido. A veces incluso aprovecho para entretenerme con el móvil. Debo admitir que en invierno prefiero tomar mi coche para ir al trabajo, porque así no tengo que caminar bajo la lluvia o aguantar el frío en la calle. El resto del año prefiero tomar el bus, ya que la parada que está al lado de mi casa me viene como anillo al dedo y prefiero caminar un poco hasta el trabajo a tener que conducir en medio del tráfico.
Did you understand all that Miguel said? I hope so. If you didn't understand all the dialogue or all the story that Miguel was telling us, don't worry, I am going to give you an explanation now. But before we continue, I would like to remind you to subscribe to my channel and activate the notification bell, because this way you are going to know exactly when I upload a new video. Usually I upload my videos during the weekend, but sometimes I upload videos also during the week. So if you don't want to miss out, if you don't want to miss any of my videos, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell. And that's it. Let's continue. So the first thing that I want to highlight or that I want to explain to you is that Miguel used the word siempre. Siempre, as you may know in English, means always. And this is an adverb of frequency, something that you use to describe how frequently something happens. So, for example, siempre is when something happens always. So it happens 100% of the time. But there are other adverbs of frequency that I want to show you in Spanish. For example, if something happens generally, you say generalmente o por lo general. Then if something happens less often, you say normalmente, usualmente. Then we have the words a menudo o frecuentemente, which would be like often or frequently. Then we have algunas veces o a veces, which is like sometimes. Then we have de vez en cuando or ocasionalmente, which would be like now and then or occasionally. Then we have rara vez o casi nunca. And then that would be like rarely or hardly ever. And then finally, when something never happens, you say nunca o jamás. And that's it. I wanted to show you this because I think it's very, very useful. Of course, I also have a very useful picture on my social networks. If you want to check them, you can go to my Facebook and Instagram accounts and follow me over there, and you will find not only this picture but many other pictures that I keep uploading and sharing with my followers, and you can just use them to practice and to memorize this useful vocabulary. Also, you can find them on my website www.useyourspanish.com. And let's continue. So Miguel also uses the expression más o menos, más o menos. So this is the equivalent in English to say more or less. When you want to give an approximation of something, or when you are saying something and you don't really know the exact amount of time or the exact number of things that you are describing, you can use this expression just like in English. So when you say more or less, but we have several other expressions, and I think they may be useful for you to know them. I'm going to give you the same example with all of them so that you get an idea of how we use them in the same context. Tardaremos 15 minutos más o menos. So it's something like, it will take us 15 minutes more or less. Then you have the expression aproximadamente, which would be the same in English like approximately. So how do we use this? Exactly the same, just like tardaremos 15 minutos aproximadamente. It will take us 15 minutes approximately. Then we have the expression cerca de. In English, the equivalent to this expression would be like about. When you say, it will take us about 15 minutes, we say tardaremos cerca de 15 minutos. Then we have alrededor de, which means exactly the same, about. So we say tardaremos alrededor de 15 minutos. And finally, another expression is en torno a. We also use this expression very often. And this is also, let's say, another way of saying about in Spanish. So it's like tardaremos en torno a los 15 minutos. Just be careful because in this kind of expression, you have to use that little bit of a los 15 minutos. You cannot say tardaremos en torno 15 minutos. No, you have to say en torno a los 15 minutos. This is just a way to say exactly the same thing in 5 different ways. So you can say tardaremos 15 minutos más o menos, tardaremos 15 minutos aproximadamente, tardaremos cerca de 15 minutos, tardaremos alrededor de 15 minutos o tardaremos en torno a los 15 minutos. Okay, so let's continue. In the dialogue or in the story, Miguel also used the expression siempre que when he was talking about traffic. This expression can mean 2 different things in Spanish, and it depends on the word that follows it. So, for example, if siempre que, the expression siempre que, is followed by an indicative, a verb in the indicative, it has the meaning of every time that. So like cada vez que. But if this expression siempre que is followed by a verb in the subjunctive, it has the meaning of a condition. And the equivalent for this expression in English would be like when you say as long as, because this is like showing a condition. So something is going to happen as long as something else happens. So I am going to explain to you because this is a little bit difficult for me to explain, but I think with the examples, you're going to be able to understand a little bit better. So for the first expression, we have these two examples. Siempre que puedo, llamo a mis padres. Every time that I can, I call my parents. Or siempre que corro, me fatigo, which means like every time that I run, I get tired. So as you can see here, the expression siempre que is followed by the indicativo, by the indicative way of the verb. In this case is puedo o corro. But then for the second meaning, when we use siempre que followed by the subjunctive, we also have another expression in Spanish that is siempre y cuando. So you can use this expression siempre y cuando followed by the subjunctive, or the expression siempre que followed by the subjunctive too. And they both mean exactly the same. For example, we say tardaremos 40 minutos siempre que no haya tráfico. O lo haré siempre y cuando sea legal. Do you know what these phrases mean? So the first one, when we are using the siempre que plus the subjunctive, means it will take us 40 minutes as long as there is no traffic or a traffic jam. And the second one, it means exactly the same thing. I mean, siempre y cuando and siempre que in this context mean exactly the same thing. So it says, lo haré siempre y cuando sea legal. It means I will do it as long as it is legal. So as you can see, both of these expressions, siempre que and siempre y cuando, are followed by the subjunctive form of the verb. In this case, haya on the first sentence and sea in the second sentence. If you come up with an example or you have any questions about this, just leave them down below in the comments and I will correct you. Let's continue. Miguel used the expression or the word desde. Desde is a word that we can use to describe like a starting point. These words are used just to define a period of time or a space, a distance. And I want to give you the definition in Spanish, but also I want to let you know first, before I give you the definition, that we can use desde hasta, but we can also use de a, just to express exactly the same idea, the idea of a starting point and then the destination. Okay, so the definition in Spanish is, pueden utilizarse, these two expressions can be used, or these words can be used, para marcar un momento en el tiempo o un espacio, es decir, una distancia entre dos puntos. So as I was saying, a starting point and then a destination point. I am going to show you some examples. Let's get started with the first way of saying it. Estudié allí desde el 2015 hasta el 2018. Here we are talking about time. So he says, I studied there from 2015 until 2018. Desde hasta. Then, talking about space, about distance, we have this example. It says, caminamos desde el cine hasta mi casa. So the starting point was the cinema and the destination was my house. So there is, a distance between 2 points. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an example with the other way of saying it. Sometimes these words can be used interchangeably, as you're going to see. Like, for example, in this case, we could also say, estudié allí del 2015 al 2018. Or, caminamos del cine a mi casa. So as you can see, they give us exactly the same idea of what we are trying to express or what we are trying to say. Okay, so de a. Tuvimos clase de 9 a 12. So this is talking about time. So we had a class from 9 to 12. And then talking about space or distance, this example, tomaré un vuelo de Madrid a Roma. So I will take a flight from Madrid to Rome. So from until, so sometimes it depends in English, but in Spanish we have these two ways of saying it, desde hasta or de a. Just a little side note, in the, let's say, quotation marks, correct Spanish, it's not recommended to use a combination of the two. So for example, it's not recommended or it's not considered correct to use a combination of desde a or de hasta. So either you use desde hasta or de a. So it's just a little clarification so you don't make a mistake. I mean, of course, people are going to understand you, but it is not considered correct. Let's continue. I know this part was a little bit complicated. I hope you were able to understand. If you didn't understand something, just let me know in the comments and I will try to clarify this for you. Now, he used an expression, the expression tener sus pros y sus contras. This expression means that something has advantages and disadvantages. It's a very common expression in Spanish, but I know that also in English. In English, you also say that it has pros and cons. So I think it's really easy to understand. But I'm going to give you some examples. The first one, ser famoso tiene sus pros y sus contras. Of course, being famous has, pros and cons. So ser famoso tiene sus pros y sus contras porque ser famoso no siempre es una ventaja, también tiene sus desventajas. ¿Te has dado cuenta cuando los famosos no pueden ni siquiera salir a un restaurante porque está todo el mundo encima? No pueden tener una vida muy tranquila. The second example is tener una mascota tiene sus pros y sus contras. Claro, tener una mascota tiene sus ventajas y sus desventajas. Sus ventajas que puedes tener compañía, que puedes disfrutar del cariño de la mascota, si es un perro, por ejemplo, pero pues tiene sus contras y es que necesitas tener ciertos cuidados y dedicar cierta cantidad de tiempo para sacar a pasear al perrito o para comprarle sus alimentos, en fin, es una responsabilidad. Then, Miguel uses the expression un buen rato. But yes, of course, this expression has two meanings also. The first meaning of un buen rato is a good time. I had a good time. Pasé un buen rato, tuve un buen rato con esa persona. It's like, okay, I had a good time. That would be like the literal translation and the most direct meaning of this expression. But this has another meaning, which is actually, in my opinion, more common in that we use it all the time, and is when we use it to describe something that happens during a relatively long time. I'm going to give you an example. Estuve esperándote un buen rato. So I was waiting for you for a long time. Or hablé un buen rato con mis padres. I talked to my parents for a long time. So as you can see, we use this expression just to give this idea of a relatively long period of time. Okay, let's continue then. Miguel also uses the expression la más, la opción más rápida, when he was talking about the two options that he had to go to work. So he said that there was the fastest option. So this la más can also change according to gender and according to if it's singular or plural. We would say la más o el más o los más o las más. This is called superlativo relativo, and is the equivalent in English when you use the expression the most, or you add the est particle to the adjectives. For example, in English, when you say the most beautiful person or the prettiest girl in town or something like that. So we also use, we can also say that in Spanish, but we use the superlativo relativo. And it changes, as I said before, according to gender and according to the quantity, if it's singular or plural. Some examples. Daniel es el más inteligente de la clase. So Daniel is the most intelligent person in the class, or the most intelligent one in the class. Carolina fue la más rápida de la carrera. So Carolina was the fastest in the race or in the competition. Felipe y Pedro eran los más pequeños del grupo. So Felipe and Pedro were the smallest ones in the group. So, and then, finally, Diana y María son las más guapas. So, Diana and María are the prettiest ones, or the most beautiful ones. So, as you can see, this is the superlativo relativo. I don't know if you already knew this, but this is also very useful because we use it all the time. As you can see, you use it a lot all the time in English. So, let's continue. Okay, Miguel uses the word aparcar. Another way of saying aparcar is estacionar, which is parking. You know, you are parking your car on the street or in a parking lot, of course. Some examples are yo aparco mi coche o aparco mi coche frente a mi casa o estaciono mi coche frente a mi casa. So I put these two examples here for you to see that we can use both aparcar or estacionar in the same way. And then another thing that I want to explain here is that even though sometimes you hear autobús and sometimes you hear bus, both of them mean exactly the same thing and you can use them interchangeably. I just want to give you another side note, a little thing for you to keep in mind, to remember, is that in some countries in Latin America, like for example in Colombia, we don't use the verb aparcar, we use the verb parquear. I mean, they are very similar and they give you exactly the same meaning, but yeah, like in Colombia, and I am so sure that in many other countries in Latin America, they don't use aparcar. They probably would use more often the verb estacionar, for example, because we also use it in Colombia, estacionar. But aparcar, we don't use it. And also, in most countries in Latin America, I would say, we don't use the word coche for car. We use the word carro or auto. Like in Colombia, we use carro, but there are other countries in Latin America that auto is more common, but we don't really use the word coche to say car. We say, for example, voy a conducir mi carro, or voy a manejar mi carro, which is to drive. I'm going to drive my car. Let's continue. Miguel also says that the closest bus stop to his work is over 300 meters. So that is not very convenient for him, especially when he is late. And he uses the expression ir tarde, voy tarde. I want just to give you a little bit of a clarification here, because in English, you don't say I go late. In English, you say I'm late. But in Spanish, we use the expression voy tarde. But then we also have another expression that you can use, and is se me ha hecho tarde o se me hizo tarde para la cita médica. That's another way to say I'm late. Okay, so I think this is also very, very interesting. Now, more things. The word atasco. So do you know what atasco means? When you're doing the dishes and then, you know, the sink is clogged, that is an atasco. But then in Spain, it is also used to express the idea of a traffic jam. Of course, there are other ways to say it, especially in Latin American countries. For example, tráfico vehicular or embotellamiento. In Spain also they use these two expressions, but in Colombia we would say something like trancón, for example. But anyways, the expression atasco, tráfico vehicular or embotellamiento means traffic jam. An example is pasé 2 horas en un atasco, o pasé 2 horas en el tráfico vehicular, o pasé 2 horas en un embotellamiento, o, as we say in Colombia, pasé 2 horas en un trancón. Okay, let's continue. Miguel also uses the word recorrido. He said that when he takes the bus, he enjoys the recorrido or el trayecto from the bus stop to his work. So what is this word recorrido or trayecto? The translation to English is a little bit tricky because there is not like a literal translation, but the closest one would be like journey. So it's the distance that you travel from one point, point A, to point B. So I'm going to give you an example, maybe you understand better. El recorrido de mi casa a la universidad es corto. So the distance, the journey from my house to my university is short, it's not very far away. So el recorrido, el trayecto de mi casa a la universidad es corto. We use this word recorrido or trayecto just to describe that action of going from one place to another, from point A to point B. I don't know if it's clear, but again, if you have questions about this, just let me know in the comments. Oh, the word incluso. Miguel also used this expression incluso. So, what is the meaning of this word? Okay, es un adverbio que se usa con valor de adición enfática. So, you use this word when you want to emphasize something. So, it's just like the equivalent to the word even in English, which is an adverb used to emphasize something surprising or extreme. Examples. Incluso dormido pienso en mis problemas. So, even when I am sleeping, I think about my problems. Or, todos quieren que yo vaya, incluso mis padres. Everyone wants me to go, even my parents. So, it's something surprising, something extreme. So, you use this word incluso in Spanish. More. The word aprovechar. This is a word that I really like in Spanish because I use it all the time. But okay, I'm going to try to explain to you the most relevant meanings of this word. The first meaning of this word is utilizar una cosa de forma que se obtenga el máximo provecho posible de ella. So you want to use something in a way that you obtain the most out of it, the most benefit out of it. So, for example, in English, you have the expression to make the most of. For example, aprovecha cada oportunidad que la vida te ofrezca. So it's like, make the most of every opportunity that life gives you or that life offers you. But then we have a second meaning for this word. And actually, I think it is one of the most common uses of this word. And is utilizar cierta circunstancia para obtener provecho o conseguir algo en beneficio propio. So, it's when you use a circumstance to obtain a personal benefit. But of course, it doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation. It can also be for something positive. But usually we use the expression aprovecharse de algo o de alguien just to give that idea of someone being a little bit selfish and getting benefit for something. But yeah, the translation or the equivalent in English would be like to take advantage of. For example, ellos aprovecharon su ingenuidad para engañarla. Aprovecho los fines de semana para descansar. So I take advantage of the weekends to rest or in order to rest. As you can see, the first one has like a negative connotation. Someone was trying to deceive someone. In the second one, as you can see, it's not negative. It's something normal. You are trying to use your free time just to rest. But the general idea is that you are using a circumstance to benefit yourself. In this case, yes, you are getting a benefit out of that free time that you have to be able to rest, no? Okay, so Miguel also uses the word tomar. This is a word that, as you can see, has also two meanings in Spanish. Tomar can be like to drink. Yo tomo agua. But it also has the meaning, and the meaning that Miguel used in this story is the meaning of to take. I would just want to clarify something here. In Spanish, especially in Spain, we have another word to say exactly the same thing, and it's coger. But this word, coger, is a little bit tricky because depending on the country or depending on the people you talk to, for example, if you talk to people from Venezuela or from people from Ecuador, people from Mexico. It's going to depend, because usually this word coger has another meaning, which is a little bit vulgar, a little bit, rude. And I don't want to say the word because in another video I said that word and some people were complaining because, of course, these videos are educational. So I just want to say that the verb coger in other countries, not in Spain, because in Spain it means only to take, but in other countries, in Latin America, this verb can mean something else. Okay, but let's continue. So in Spain, you can say tomar o coger just to mean to take. For example, todos los días tomo un taxi para ir al trabajo. Or you can also say todos los días cojo un taxi para ir al trabajo. It's perfectly normal, perfectly accepted. So just if you are traveling to a Latin American country or you are talking to someone from Latin America in Spanish, just make sure that you clarify the meaning of this word coger. Now the word aguantar, he also used this expression to say that he had to aguantar when he was in a traffic jam, and he didn't like that. So the verb aguantar can also be expressed by the verb soportar. You can use them sometimes interchangeably, aguantar or soportar, which is in English the verb to endure or to stand or to put up. Sometimes it depends on the context, but yeah, you get the idea. So an example in Spanish would be he tenido que aguantar los ronquidos de mi marido. O he tenido que soportar los ronquidos de mi marido. So I've had to endure the snoring of my husband. Okay, the next one, al lado de. So al lado de can also be expressed just by saying junto a. So you can say either la lámpara está al lado de la mesa o la lámpara está junto a la mesa, which means the lamp is next to the table. This is just a preposition of place out of the many prepositions of place that we have in Spanish. And if you are interested in these prepositions, which are very useful, I talk briefly about them and I give you way more examples in this other video. If you want, you can click here after you finish this video. And finally, I want to talk about this common expression that Miguel used, which is venir como anillo al dedo. So we use this just to express que algo o alguien es muy conveniente o adecuado ante una situación particular. So we use it just to express that something or someone is very convenient or something is very adequate at a very particular situation. I would say that in English, an expression that can be like the equivalent, and I've heard sometimes this expression, is it fits like a glove. I don't know if you have heard about this expression in English. I have heard this expression before. So that's why I think this is like the equivalent to this common expression in Spanish. I'm going to give you an example so you understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. Con este calor, la lluvia nos vino como anillo al dedo. Con este calor, la lluvia nos vino como anillo al dedo. So it's like you are in the middle of the summer and you are suffering because of the heat and all of a sudden it starts raining. So you say, oh, con este calor, la lluvia nos vino como anillo al dedo. So the rain, was very convenient at that specific moment because it was very hot. And then, of course, the rain cooled down a little bit the weather, so it was very convenient. Or this another example, estaba triste, pero hablar contigo me vino como anillo al dedo. Estaba triste, pero hablar contigo me vino como anillo al dedo. So I was very sad, but talking to you was very convenient, was very good because now I feel better, okay? Something like that. So this is just a way in which you can use this expression. And you can think about many other examples. If you come up with another example, maybe more creative, maybe a little bit more funny or funnier, you can just leave it in the comments below, okay? And that's it. That's my part, my explanation. I hope you understand now a little bit more of this stuff and you have learned new things. Now you are going to listen to Miguel's story at the normal speed. So you are going to be able to understand better because now you have listened to it in a very slow speed and you got an explanation of the maybe unknown expressions and words. So you can close your eyes if you want and listen to it, try to follow the dialogue or try to follow the story, Miguel's story.
Al salir de casa en las mañanas tengo siempre dos opciones para ir a mi trabajo. La primera es tomar mi coche y conducir durante 40 minutos más o menos, siempre que no haya mucho tráfico. Y la segunda opción es tomar el autobús desde la parada que está junto a mi casa, pero tardo alrededor de 1 hora en llegar a mi oficina. Las dos opciones tienen sus pros y sus contras. La primera opción es la más rápida, y al salir de trabajar puedo volver a casa inmediatamente, pero tiene la desventaja de que en muchas ocasiones tengo que estar un buen rato en medio del tráfico lento, y además debo pagar para aparcar mi coche. La segunda opción, que es la que elijo generalmente, toma más tiempo porque debo esperar el autobús, y porque la parada más cercana a mi trabajo queda a unos 300 metros, lo cual no es cómodo, especialmente cuando voy tarde. Pero la ventaja es que no debo preocuparme por buscar un aparcamiento o por conducir en medio de un atasco. Simplemente me relajo y disfruto del recorrido. A veces incluso aprovecho para entretenerme con el móvil. Debo admitir que en invierno prefiero tomar mi coche para ir al trabajo, porque así no tengo que caminar bajo la lluvia o aguantar el frío en la calle. El resto del año prefiero tomar el bus, ya que la parada que está al lado de mi casa me viene como anillo al dedo, y prefiero caminar un poco hasta el trabajo a tener que conducir en medio del tráfico.
And that's it. That's all for today's video. I know it's been a little bit tough today, especially for me because I am not used to speaking in English all the time. But I decided to make these videos in English because there are many students that are just starting to learn Spanish, and I think they may find these videos more useful when I give some explanations in English. But of course, you can also count on my examples and my pronunciation in Spanish. In the future, in the upcoming videos, some of them I are going to make them in Spanish because some people also are interested in listening to real Spanish. Anyways, I would like to let you know that I started a new podcast. You can find it on SoundCloud and on Apple Podcasts. And of course, you can find it as Use Your Spanish Podcast or just Use Your Spanish. You can also find it on my website anyways. And that's it. That's all for now. Thank you for watching my video. I just want to remind you that you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. There I keep sharing some interesting pictures that can be very helpful, very useful for you to memorize and to practice some vocabulary, expressions, common sayings, etc. So if you use those social networks, I recommend you to follow me. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have found it useful. If you did, please just give us a like and share it with your friends. Bye bye. Hasta luego.